Oh man, I am feeling so anxious today, and I know why. And the reason that I'm naked is it's 80 something degrees outside, and I have yet to turn the AC on because I actually like 80-degree weather. I can go up to, I would say, like just below the 90s, I'm fine, as long as I'm in the shade and not like running a marathon. So, yeah, that's why I'm in this. Not that I need to give you an explanation, but just in case you thought I was being thirsty. Although there's nothing wrong with being thirsty at the same time. So anyway, yeah, I'm a little out of sorts today. I've got some tea and some incense going to try to help ground me. I should probably meditate at some point today. I've got a couple things I still need to get done in the few hours that I have to myself. So we will see what I'm able to prioritize. I do need to turn my compost pile. It's been several days, so I have no idea if it's like a sludge now. But priorities. I don't have time is finite in a day, and I don't have the ability to get everything done in every day. So I think, like I said in previous videos, it's a matter of priority, and so I'm really trying to focus on the things that I think really benefit me personally. For whatever reason that is, I just feel good about doing it. So making a video comes first, regardless of what else I have to do. And as usual, I do and I don't know what I'm going to talk about. This isn't scripted, obviously. I'm looking at my cats. They're all surrounding me. Escher's on one side, Echo's on the other side, Evie's over by the window, and they're just enjoying, the nice cross breeze. So I'm excited to be, in the throes of spring, almost summer. I have a hive here. I have such sensitive skin, and I just moisturize, so if I look extra oily, that's why. Anyway, I'll stop qualifying myself because it's dumb and just start talking about things. So in the past week, maybe like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I'm honestly not sure because time is, I don't really pay attention to time that much these days because of quarantine. Some interesting stuff has been happening, and I don't want to be cryptic. Obviously, I've said from the beginning of making these videos that my whole point is to be open and honest and authentic, so I want to do that. At the same time, I don't want to get ahead of myself, I think, and that's more of a personal thing. So I feel like by talking too much about something, I believe that words manifest. So there's certain things I just don't want to say, but I'm going to try and talk about this as generally as possible while still being open and authentic. And nobody watches this anyway, so I guess it really doesn't matter. But I have been, I've been on Tinder for a while. I mean, a long while. Probably not since, not very long after I broke up with my ex-partner, former abuser, and I wasn't obviously intending to really be with anyone despite getting on it. It was more just like a time kill, a distraction, especially in the times of quarantine, being a new mom that was just, relationship destroyed. It was a distraction more than anything. But I found myself in the past couple months, this past now almost year, kind of grappling with this strange internal guilt because I did meet my former partner on Tinder, the one who abused me. So I feel this sort of internal shaming or like questioning of, if you met this person on Tinder and they abused you, why are you now back on Tinder again? It doesn't seem smart in some ways. But at the same time, prior to meeting him, I met lots of people on Tinder. I made lots of friends from Tinder, and some like one night stands and just, fun stories. And so it had never been bad in the past. So I have to realize that while I was abused by this one person that I did happen to meet on Tinder, it wasn't necessarily Tinder that facilitated the abuse. That was just sort of, I mean, I could have met this person in so many other places in my city. We sort of came to find once we were talking, when we were in a relationship. Um, so I don't think that it's specific to Tinder. That's just happens to be how we met. But I still think that I've had this sort of internalized shame about being back on it, and almost like, like I said, like, you were abused. Why are you back on here? This seems stupid. Or I question, like questioning myself, a lot of self doubt, and sometimes imposter syndrome. And I know a lot of it is like remnants from the actual relationship. A lot of the gaslighting and the manipulation, narcissists, covert or otherwise, are really good at confusing you about yourself. I mean, that's really the only way they can maintain power over you, is if they, like, either you don't have a strong connection with yourself, or they sever the connection that you have with yourself. And this person that I was with was very good at, well, one, I didn't have a strong connection with myself. I was going through a lot when I met them. I haven't ever, I think, professed to be like a perfect person. I was not an angel when I met them by any means. But they also helped to exacerbate that situation that I was in, that weak connection with myself. They sort of took advantage of it. And I feel in some ways, while I don't know what they were thinking, either consciously, subconsciously, they knew I was a prime target, I think, just because of what I was going through in my life. And because I don't want to be cryptic, at the time that I met them, was on a leave of absence from my former job that I hated, because I kept trying to work in the corporate world because I felt like that somehow made me somebody in the eyes of, I don't know, my family, society. I had no worth unless I had signed up for the capitalist rat race that is America. So I was doing that, and I was falling apart because of it. And I was on a leave of absence, and I was dealing specifically with two issues at the time. One was an addiction to Adderall, which I had picked up from a coworker, sort of benignly at first, that they were using it, abusing it, to be more productive, and it helped them. They didn't need it medically, and they offered it to me, and it made me more productive. So I continued to use it, and obviously it's an amphetamine, a legalized one, so there were a lot of consequences after using it for a while. I would say probably half a year, if not longer, I was using it. And then I decided to get help, because the side effects of that medication is it suppresses your appetite. And I have already had a past with disordered eating, anorexia, restriction. And so it just kind of pushed that back into an active state. And so I was dealing with both the addiction and a flare-up, I guess, of my eating disorder. So I was concerned at the time and was trying to be proactive about my health. I know that now. And sort of the problem I got into was not realizing that when you're in a place of recovery, like, a relationship is the last thing you need to be engaging in. That's the incense. And I actually picked that up from, I think it was Euphoria, in like the short 2 episodes after the first season, where Zendaya is talking with her sponsor. I forget his name, but he's a cool character. I'm moving this over here. And she's talking about her relationship with Jules. Sorry if you don't know Euphoria, or I'm spoiling this for you, but now you'll know. And she's in recovery and then trying to have a relationship with Jules, and the guy is very much like, you can't have both, and nobody told me that, and these are the kinds of things that you don't like necessarily know when you're going through addiction recovery and eating disorder recovery. And maybe people told me that in like a more subtle way, but no one told me that directly. So I chose, and you know what, at the same time, I probably still would have done it regardless, because I wanted to do what I wanted to do. And unknowingly, I think self-harm was the name of my game in some ways. So like I've said in other videos, I think I very much actively participated in being a part of the abuse by staying, and I know that can be a triggering or a controversial thing to say, because it seems like victim blamey, and that's not at all what I'm trying to do. But I'm also trying to like speak my truth, and I by no means am saying that this applies to other victims of abuse. I think that there's lots of situations where people are like physically afraid to leave, and I would say There were moments like that in my relationship with my former partner, but overall, that wasn't the case. A lot of it was just not knowing that I was being abused because I was being so um, skillfully manipulated that I just didn't even know what reality was anymore. I lost so much of being in touch with myself. And so, that's a very long tangent. Um, these past couple weeks, I've been talking to some people, mostly women, but I did start talking to a male. And, I noticed that I interact with men and women differently because we are socialized differently, for good or bad. That's kind of the whole problem with gender constructs in society. And men is something that I'm very fluent in. Women, it's a little bit new to me. I'm fumbling, I'm blind. So I've been talking to women mostly, but we operate in a different timeline. We speak a different language together. And with men, it's a completely different language, but something that I've become acclimated to, accustomed to over time. So, I started talking to this person, and it is benign. But I realize in the past week or two that we've been talking, they have expressed. And I also honestly feel like there could be something more. And that's incredibly scary for me, like incredibly scary. One, because this person, there's a lot of similarities with my former partner, and I don't want to get into that because I'm not trying to necessarily call out this person. I haven't ever tried to specifically name the people in my videos, so I'm not going to do that with this person. But there's a lot of similarities, and it's a bit like Freudian on some level. Like I'm just questioning myself, like, what am I doing? Do I think that I actually said to them in one of our conversations, like, do I think that I'm able to correct the past with the present? Because that doesn't work. I'm not gonna, by possibly seeing or dating this person, be able to fix what happened before, like, even if the situation is so eerily similar. So I want to be really mindful of that, going into it, that's not what I'm trying to do. And I don't think that's what it is. I think there's a lot of similarities that point to me to believe that this could be something significant. And I do believe, much like with the ascension things, that there are like certain time loops, inverted time loops, stuck time loops, time loops, that get repeated. And I would say that that's happened to me before, in the theme of like children. There were several instances in my life that kind of came about until I finally had Luna, without going into detail. And I will definitely, I can talk about it later if someone is interested. And so I see in this scenario that this is potentially maybe what that is. It's another kind of time loop, and just having a level of awareness about things that I've never had before, just about myself, who I am, my boundaries, really practicing using my voice and setting my boundaries and sticking to them, not being afraid of perceived rejection or abandonment, really taking care of me first and my daughter first. That's the main concern for me, because I know that if I am affected negatively by anyone, that will or impact my daughter. And so, while before I was kind of careless with myself, I don't want to be careless with myself anymore. One, for me, but also for the sake of my daughter. So I've got that, I think I've said before, that extra layer, and I'm really trying to be mindful of that. But that being said, it's really an interesting experience, having sort of feeling alive again, feeling awakened, feeling attracted. And I guess, I had been attracted to a friend, and we're still friends, a couple months ago, and that kind of came, and I sat with it, and now it's gone. But that attraction wasn't mutual, so it was fine. I accepted that, and it died out, and we're still friends, and it's kind of sailed on. Like, it was a good lesson in like letting go, and everything's fine. But in this case, it is very much reciprocated. On some levels, I almost feel like more than I'm potentially ready to reciprocate is my honest truth. So it's different, it's more intense. Like, this feeling that I have potentially has a place to go if I want it to, and vice versa. And so I'm really trying to hold on to that in myself, because I realize what a sacred gift it is, and I'm not quite ready to part with it. I would rather just sit with it. I would rather, if I'm given the option, with my last partner, I wasn't given any option. He took away my power, he took away my agency, but in this scenario, I'm being very much given like freedom and agency and a choice. And if I have my druthers, I would rather wait. And they're very receptive to that. Like they've made it clear, what they could like, and at some point soon we will meet, but I want to be vaccinated, and I'm trying to be healthy and mindful about everything. So it's not something that I'm gonna rush into. Plus, it's just mom life. I can't just pick up and go. I'm in a position now, and that's very much a good thing. I mean, I very much wanted that, and I'm fine with that. Um, I don't regret that. It's helpful to me. But it's interesting to me in feeling this kind of awakening. A lot of my creativity has come back that was really sort of siphoned from me from my ex-partner, who, maybe initially I was their muse, but more so I was just like their fodder, their fuel for their own creative process. Looking back, they never really wanted to engage with me creatively as a peer. I was more like a prop or a tool or a costume in a lot of ways. They would take from me my clothing, my objects, my house, and they would act as if it was them, and that was such a weird thing for me, that I explored with my therapist. So talking to this person who's very much an artist themselves, and while there isn't any kind of discussion in terms of us as artists, it's like they're not at this point using me. I can tell because we've been talking. That's it. We haven't met. So it's gone in a very different trajectory than it did with my former partner, which basically, we matched one night. They were very pushy via text, and I pushed them off the first night, and then the second night I was like, yeah, let's hang out. I'd done that before. It was never a problem with many people, and it was fine. And with them, I invited them over, and they raped me the first night, and then they raped me the second night. And like saying that stuff, like I smile because like I'm uncomfortable, because it's a very confusing thing in my mind, for myself, and then also thinking how other people will react. Like, they raped you? Well, why didn't you call the police? Or you went on a second date? Like, what the hell is wrong with you, And it's a lot more complicated than that. Like, I've really had to work that out in myself through therapy and just, my own thinking. But there was a lot of, like, cognitive dissonance, dissociation, trauma bonding that happened, and that I very much knew would happen, which was why I didn't want to have sex in the first place. So I also know, if I speak my truth, I remember very specifically that there were actions I took that night that would ensure that I wouldn't have sex with this person, because I was, in my mind, in my truth, not wanting to, and they took advantage regardless. I said no multiple times. I pushed them off multiple times. I put my hand, I stopped them. And at one point, I just realized they weren't going to stop. And some people fight back. Some people scream. Some people run away. I just froze. That's like my truth. I'm like the animal that just plays dead. And so it happened. And then I think in trying to rationalize it and make it seem like it was okay, because like to protect me more than anything, to make sense of it, I had to act like, well, maybe I liked them anyway, so at some point we were going to do this, so it would have been fine, and I was really making excuses for somebody that had just raped me. And then the second time we met, the same exact scenario. It's more graphic. They specifically asked if they could do a certain sex act, and I said no, and then immediately following the no, they did it anyway. And then I stopped them, and they were like, oh, sorry, like complete confusion, and I realized that both of those scenarios were like a complete domination of power, like taking my power away. And in the very end of our relationship, when they were kind of showing their cards, because I feel like even the devil wants to be known, they told me that their fetish was transgressions, and it was something I had to think on for months now. And I realized that it makes so much sense now, because then when we were in a relationship, our sex life was non-existent, because once it became like a reciprocated thing, they no longer wanted it. They only ever wanted it when they could force it on me or anybody, So that's kind of going back to the past, but I mean, just to give you an idea, like, I'm scared to like somebody again. I'm scared because of the similarities of this person in history repeating itself. And I feel physically a lot of death. My body reacts in like there's impending doom, tight chest, rapid breathing, sweaty palms, anxiety coursing through my body, stomach in knots, can't eat, just not feeling well, like feeling physically sick when I'm actually trying to experience pleasure, which is a very also confusing thing, conflating pain with pleasure. I feel like that's been my life. So I've really been trying to sift through these feelings because it's not fun, but at the same time, if I want to engage with someone, it's something that I'm going to have to work through in myself. So that's what I'm doing. And I think, aside from that, aside from the similarities and the triggering, it's also bringing about like a lot of unhealed trauma, a lot of grieving that still needs to be done. Because in revisiting a lot of this, just from the reminders, I'm going back to the situation because I'm talking to them about what happened, and it just brings up so much that hasn't still been resolved, that I still need to grieve, and the emotions are so complicated. To feel like I love my abuser and will always love my abuser is such a fucking defeatist thing to feel like I'm saying, but at the same time, it's my truth. And to fight that isn't going to make me feel any better. It's just going to make me feel worse, So I want to acknowledge it. I want to be gentle with myself. I want to understand that human emotions are complex, like a child being abused by their parent. They still love that parent. It's not only in those scenarios that exists. It happens in amorous relationships. It did in mine. So trying to hold these sort of dialectics as both being valid while still in opposition to each other has been a really important thing for not invalidating myself and gaslighting myself. So I've just really been focusing on that. And I remember when I was with them, in a relationship with them, they used to always talk about all the women they left behind and abandoned that had made homes for them, and they never got over them. Like, these women never got over him. And it was like really trying to groom me or prep me for this fear that I would never get over them. So then when I started to feel like, oh shit, I'm not getting over them, it's like I want to fight that even harder. But at the same time, when I really question it, I know that the love that I feel for them, it's not the same love anymore, and that I am over them in the sense of wanting to be in a relationship with them and being like amorously in love with them. But the love that I have for them, for those memories, for that desire to care for them, to nurture them, that I trusted them, even though they betrayed that, like, that doesn't go away. And it's only complicated by the fact that I have a daughter with this person. It just, when I see her, I see me, I see him, I see her. And to not love him would make it hard in some ways to not love her, I feel like. I don't know. That's just how I feel. So I love it all, but it's like a bittersweet love. It's a love that has no place to exist in my life anymore. So I love these memories, but I try not to hold on because there's so much in the future that's waiting for me. I mean, I've already seen in the past year, not to brag, but the people that are waiting to be with me if I really want that, and I don't. So I've seen, not only am I desirable, am I lovable, that people want to be with me, but also that, I also want to be with other people, that I can move on. And that's great. I mean, that makes me so excited. And I think the biggest thing that I've talked about in another video is, one of the similarities is the fact that these people are both, my ex was polyamorous. This person is ethically non-monogamous. And it's different because this person has been very upfront about it from the beginning. They told me they had a primary partner and, what they were all about. And we've really spent a lot of time discussing it. Whereas with my ex, it was like, have your cake and eat it too. They didn't say it. It came out like very confusingly, weeks later, months later. There was never direct anything, no direct communication, no truth. Everything was confusing. Everything was veiled. And I was always shamed for questioning anything, for my right to ask, for my right to know, So I can already see the differences, but my ex-partner really convinced me that, the issue was that I was insecure and I wasn't trusting and I wasn't into polyamory or ethical non-monogamy. And in some ways I believed them, because I was just such a flailing mess. But now that I've been talking to this person, and even before that, as I've been talking with women, all of these women or non-binary people have been ethically non-monogamous. So I know that that's not the problem, and that's never been the problem. Jealousy was not the issue. It's what they tried to tell me was the issue to put it back on me and to disarm me and to not take accountability for the ways that they were being dishonest and manipulative and abusing me, basically. Because if it were true, then I wouldn't be able to do this now. I wouldn't be able to talk to those people in the past and this person currently, and really being exploring for myself what my relationship preference and my sexual identity, all that stuff is. You know, I was for so long just buying this narrative that they were selling, they were forcing on me, because they were really good at convincing me over I was at believing myself, like, at the end of the day. So yeah, I mean, I feel like that's really all I wanted to say. Just a lot of reflection, and perhaps there's relevance for, you know, the 0 people that watch this or whoever does watch this, because I do see views, but I don't see comments or anything like that. So, and that's fine. Obviously, it's very much, I want you to do it of your own volition and not out of guilt or force. So I'm not going to make anyone engage. I can't even make you do that anyway. So that's all I have to say. I'm going to leave it here. If you do have something to say, if it resonates, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. You can email me at theronanelliott@gmail.com. Otherwise, I am going to get about my day. I need to eat and tend to that compost pile. So I hope the rest of you are doing well, wherever you are, whenever you see this. And we will talk again soon. Thanks for listening.